Imagine just for a second that the power grid goes down tonight.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
Like you look out your window and the streetlights are completely dead. There's no police sirens in the distance,
Right.
no grocery store deliveries coming in the morning. Your phone has zero signal.
It's just a dead brick.
Exactly, just you, whoever happens to be inside your house with you, and the dark outside your door. In that exact moment when every single engineered system of our modern life just vanishes, gone.
Yeah, gone.
Yeah.
What makes a man actually valuable?
Man, it's a terrifying hypothetical, honestly.
It really is.
Because it instantly strips away, like, everything we use to define ourselves today. Your job title, your bank account, how polite you are at dinner parties, all of it just becomes instantly meaningless.
Right. And that jarring, kind of uncomfortable scenario is the absolute foundation of today's deep dive.
Yeah, we are definitely stepping into a landscape that is uncompromisingly primal today. We really are. We're looking at a book called The Way of Men by Jack Donovan. And right up front, I really need to put a massive disclaimer on this for you listeners.
Yeah, very necessary.
We are about to wade into some deeply polarizing, like highly provocative ideas about biology, gender, and society.
Oh, very much so. I mean, this text challenges the very core of modern Western ideals.
Yeah.
It asks us to completely set aside what we consider to be, a civilized person.
So we are taking our modern moral compasses and we are just putting them in a drawer for the next hour.
Locking the drawer.
Exactly. And I want to make it explicitly clear to you that neither of us here is endorsing or like validating the political or social viewpoints of the author. We aren't here to champion this worldview.
No, and we aren't here to condemn it either.
Right. Our mission today is purely analytical. We are going to impartially report on the text's core argument, dissect its evolutionary logic, and really try to understand the raw mechanics of its claims.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because that core argument pivots on a really crucial distinction, right? The difference between being a good man and being good at being a man.
Yes, that phrasing is so central to the book.
It is. Donovan argues that masculinity, like at its absolute origin, has absolutely nothing to do with modern morality.
Right.
It is not an ethical framework. It is a biological and tactical survival mechanism that was forged among a group of men.
So it's that distinction between a good man, like someone who pays his taxes on time, is super kind to his neighbors, recycles his cardboard,
Right.
and someone who is good at being a man.
Exactly, which is a strictly tactical evaluation of utility in a life or death crisis.
And to even begin to grasp how Donovan arrives at this, we have to travel back, like way back. We have to look at the environment that actually forged human neurochemistry in the first place.
Right, what's fascinating here is that evolutionary biologists call this the environment of evolutionary adaptiveness, or the EEA.
The EEA, yeah.
And this isn't just, some fancy academic term for the past. It refers to the specific set of harsh primal conditions that exerted evolutionary pressure on our species for hundreds of thousands of years.
Because we forget that, right? Think about it. Sprawling, complex civilizations with millions of people, agriculture, written laws. That is a blip.
It's nothing.
That is the last 5 seconds of the evolutionary clock.
For the vast, vast majority of our existence, human beings didn't live in cities. They lived in small, nomadic survival bands.
Yeah, and the environment wasn't something you just experienced on a weekend hiking trip.
Yeah.
It was a hostile entity that was actively trying to kill you.
Every single day.
Yeah.
You were competing for limited calories with literal apex predators. You were struggling against the weather. And maybe most importantly, you were competing for territory and resources with rival bands of humans.
Which means survival wasn't abstract. It wasn't a metaphor. It was a daily, visceral, physical struggle.
And every adaptation we have, from how our adrenaline spikes when we hear a loud noise to how we form social bonds, all of it was forged in that exact crucible.
Wow, yeah.
And to understand how men evolved to behave in that specific environment, you really have to understand the foundational unit of human survival. The text argues that before you can even afford the luxury of a society.
Right, before there's art or philosophy.
Yeah, or even the concept of fairness.
Yeah.
Before all that, there must be a perimeter.
The perimeter. I love this concept. If you were standing in that primal darkness we talked about at the start, the very first thing you have to do is build a fire.
Yep.
And then you have to draw a hard physical boundary around it.
Mm-hmm.
Inside the firelight is us. That is where the warmth is. That is where the gathered food is kept. That's where the children sleep.
Safe.
Safe. And outside the firelight is them. The unknown, the beasts, the rival tribes.
But establishing that perimeter, right, it requires a division of labor.
Hmm.
And Donovan bases this division entirely on biological pragmatism.
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, humans are mammals, and mammalian reproduction is inherently asymmetrical. The biological burden falls almost entirely on females.
Which is just a stark biological reality.
It is. Women carry a child for 9 months,
Yeah.
during which they become physically vulnerable and less mobile. And then after birth, they must nurse that highly dependent infant for years.
And if we look at the raw, cold mathematics of tribal survival, this makes females the absolute bottleneck for the future of the group.
Exactly.
Like if a tribe of 50 people loses 10 men in a hunt or a skirmish with another tribe, the remaining men can still reproduce with the women, and the tribe's population recovers.
It bounces back. But if that tribe loses 10 fertile women,
The tribe is mathematically doomed.
doomed. They will likely face extinction within a generation or two. Because women represent the literal reproductive future of the group, they are the most valuable asset the tribe has.
From a pure survival standpoint, they must be protected at all costs. They have to remain inside the perimeter.
Which leaves the perimeter itself to be guarded by the demographic that is, biologically speaking, more disposable.
The men.
The men. Men don't get pregnant, they don't nurse, and they possess heavier bone density and upper body mass.
So the dangerous tasks like tracking aggressive megafauna, standing guard at night, engaging in lethal combat with rival human bands, those all fall to the males.
And it's really important to recognize how the text frames this. It isn't presented as some culturally constructed patriarchy or an arbitrary prejudice.
Right, it's not a societal invention.
No, it is presented as a vital strategic discrimination that literally kept the human species from dying out. Men become the guardians of the perimeter because losing a man is a loss of kinetic strength, but losing a woman is a loss of the future.
Wow. So if a man's biological and societal purpose in this tribal setting is to establish and hold that boundary, what happens when he fails?
Oh, the text is utterly uncompromising here.
Because weakness is not treated as a private issue, is it? Like if you're afraid of the dark or you just can't lift your share of the weight, it's not something you go to therapy for and work through at your own pace.
Absolutely not. It is an active, lethal threat to everyone else. Think about it. If the man standing next to you on the perimeter panics and runs when a rival gang attacks, the line breaks. The perimeter collapses.
And then the people inside, the women, the children, the resources, they are slaughtered or taken.
Exactly. In this primal gang, cowardice or physical frailty is a massive tactical liability.
It makes me think of like a Roman phalanx. Have you ever seen how those work?
Oh yeah, the shield walls.
Yeah. The whole military strategy relied on every single soldier locking their shield with the man next to them. If one guy gets scared and drops his shield, he doesn't just get himself killed.
Right, he opens up the whole line.
He exposes the flank of his brother and the entire formation collapses. It's like playing a base building strategy game where one breached wall means game over.
That's a great analogy.
But let me push back on this underlying assumption of constant violence for a second. Because if survival is just this brutal struggle, doesn't that mean primitive men naturally just fought like everyone?
What do you mean?
Well, Thomas Hobbes famously described the state of nature as a war of all against all. Like every man is just a solitary killer out for his own blood.
Ah, yeah. That is a very common assumption, but Donovan uses evolutionary biology to correct that Hobbesian view. Men are not solitary predators like tigers or polar bears.
Right.
A solitary man in the wild is a dead man. He can't sleep without someone to watch his back, and he certainly can't take down a woolly mammoth by himself.
So we are cooperative hunters.
Exactly. Primatologists actually use a specific term for this social structure.
Party gangs.
Party gangs.
Like chimpanzees. Right?
Exactly like chimpanzees. Male chimpanzees naturally band together into these small, tight-knit coalitions. They patrol their territorial borders together, they hunt monkeys together, and they will coordinate to ambush and kill rival males from other groups.
Jeez.
And human men possess this exact same biological hardwiring for gang formation.
And we still see this structural preference today, even when it's not life or death, don't we?
We absolutely do. The text points out that while modern militaries might have hundreds of thousands of active personnel, the true psychological loyalty of a soldier doesn't attach to the abstraction of a brigade or a nation.
Right.
It attaches to the fire team, which is roughly 2 to 4 men, or this squad, which is usually 8 to 13 men.
That reminds me of journalist Sebastian Junger. He wrote extensively about this in his book, Tribe.
Oh, yes. Excellent book.
He noted that soldiers in Afghanistan would unhesitatingly dive on a grenade for the guys in their immediate platoon, but they felt almost no emotional connection to the larger military apparatus.
Precisely. Or just look at how we structure our games. Baseball is 9 players. Football is 11. Basketball is 5.
Oh, wow. I never thought about that.
Yeah, we naturally revert to this archetypal gang size of 2 to 15 members. It is a biological comfort zone. It's small enough to be socially manageable, but large enough to effectively move, hunt, and fight.
So the true state of nature isn't individual men fighting individual men.
No, it is an ongoing, shifting landscape of small gangs of men competing against other gangs of men. The perimeter is guarded by the gang.
Okay, so picture this gang. They've formed their squad, they've established a secure perimeter, and they have a fire going. But resources are still incredibly scarce. Every piece of meat has to be earned.
Right.
This gang now has to make some really brutal decisions about who is actually allowed to stand by that fire. They have to evaluate every single member, and that brings us to what the text outlines as the utility test.
The utility test.
Yeah.
This is the cold, pragmatic reality of human value in a survival scenario.
Because in our comfortable modern society, we operate under the moral assumption that human life has inherent value, right? We are taught to value people simply for existing, for being polite, for having good intentions.
Sure, but inside the primal gang, intentions don't hunt meat.
Right. If you tell a hungry tribe, hey, I tried my best, I'm a really nice guy, they don't care. Men in this environment evaluate each other purely on utility.
Exactly. What do you bring to the table?
Right. Can you fight? Can you track an animal? Can you build a shelter that won't collapse in the snow?
And if a man is useless, if he is perpetually terrified or simply lazy and refuses to pull his weight, he becomes a mathematical negative to the group. The text extracts this brutal reality, stating plainly that an incompetent adult male is essentially a beggar.
Man, that's harsh, because the group has to spend precious calories keeping him alive, but he offers zero return on that investment.
Exactly.
So what actually happens to the man who fails the utility test?
He is systematically stripped of his status. He is pushed out of the elite hunting and fighting coalition.
Just exiled.
Well, often relegated to the fringes of the camp. He's sent to do the manual, less dangerous labor alongside the women, the sick, and the elderly. He is deemed a lesser man by his peers because he's a drag on the collective survival.
It sounds incredibly cruel to our modern ears, but fairness is a luxury a starving gang simply cannot afford.
It is. And this isn't just a cultural norm, it's a neurochemical reality. Men are biologically hardwired to care deeply about where they rank in that hierarchy.
Oh, really? Like chemically?
Yes. When men compete with each other and win, their bodies literally reward them. They get a dopamine high and a surge of testosterone.
Wow.
That chemical reward system is evolution's way of ensuring the most capable men rise to the top to lead the tribe. Evolutionary psychologists divide this behavior into 2 categories: intergroup conflict and intergroup conflict.
Okay, so intergroup conflict is the internal competition.
Right. Men will wrestle, fight, and compete fiercely with their own brothers for status, mates, and the best cut of meat inside the perimeter.
But there is a biological switch that has to flip the moment an external threat appears.
Exactly. Intergroup conflict, the fight against rival tribes, must instantly supersede intergroup conflict.
So you might be furiously angry at your brother over a dispute inside the camp.
But if a neighboring gang attacks your perimeter, you must instantly drop your grievance, turn outward, and stand back to back with them. If a gang cannot unify against an external threat, they are wiped out.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. If a man's entire worth in this primal state hinges on his utility to the gang, what exactly makes him useful? We know he can't just be nice. What are the specific traits that make a man useful when the world ends?
And that question perfectly transitions into Donovan's 4 tactical virtues. These are the exact metrics by which a man passes the utility test.
Okay, let's break these down. And we have to strip away all the modern societal fluff here. No talk of paying taxes or expressing emotions.
None of that. Let's start with the most visceral one. Tactical virtue 1, strength. And the text defines this exactly as it sounds.
Right, this isn't strength of character.
No, it is literal, physical, muscular power.
Yeah.
It is the corporeal ability to exert your pressure and force your will over yourself, over nature, and over other people.
It is not a metaphor. It is the literal physical advantage required to crush a threat or carry heavy loads.
It is the ultimate baseline. The author argues that strength makes all other values possible. Because if you're too weak to push away a man who is trying to take your food, You starve. And if you starve, you cannot write poetry, you cannot invent tools, and you cannot philosophize. In a violent environment, the advantages of having stronger men in your gang are undeniably obvious.
A man who can hit twice as hard or carry a 100-pound carcass back to the camp without collapsing is simply a superior survival asset.
Definitely.
I was thinking about this in terms of the old sailor's tattoo, the words hold fast inked across the knuckles.
Oh, nice.
Because evolutionary strength isn't just the explosive power to swing a club, it is also the static, immovable power to weather a storm, to hold your ground and not be moved when the perimeter is hit.
That kinetic and static dynamic is vital. But sheer muscle mass is entirely useless if the man possessing it is paralyzed by fear when the wolves start howling.
Right.
Which requires the gang to evaluate the next trait. Tactical virtue 2. Courage.
Courage. And again, we really have to strip away the moral gilding we've painted over this word in the modern world.
We do.
Today, we call someone courageous for, expressing an unpopular opinion on the internet or for telling off their boss. And sure, those things take emotional resilience, but that is not what Donovan is talking about.
Not at all. In the context of the primal gang, courage is defined as the absolute will to risk bodily harm or death for the good of the group.
Wow.
It is entirely measured against physical danger. Running into a burning building to save someone is tactical courage. Sending a strongly worded email is not.
The text introduces a fascinating, albeit pretty brutal, concept to explain this: gameness. It references Sam Sheridan's book, A Fighter's Heart, and uses the mechanics of dogfighting as an analogy.
Yeah, the dogfighting reference is intense but illuminating. In that illicit world, gameness is the ultimate metric of a dog's spirit. It is the eagerness to engage in the fight.
Right.
During a match, handlers will pull the dogs apart behind what are called scratch lines. A dog that willingly crosses that line to re-engage, even when it is exhausted, bleeding, and clearly broken, is considered game.
It's the absolute irrational commitment to the fight in the face of pain. The ancient Greeks called it thumos, or spiritedness. It's the spark inside a man that says, I will not yield.
Yes.
And men in a gang are constantly subtly testing each other for this trait. If I push you, will you yield? Or will you push back? That is amoral, tactical courage.
But this raises an important question, right? Like, what if a guy is just naturally small? Does that mean he inherently lacks this tactical virtue because he lacks the sheer muscular strength of the larger men?
Oh, that's a great point. The text actually makes a really sharp distinction here. A small man can actually possess vastly more gameness than a giant.
Exactly.
Think of a 130-pound flyweight fighter who simply refuses to stay on the mat. Gameness is the internal push. A massive, heavily muscled man who refuses to engage when the perimeter is attacked is completely useless.
But a small man who holds the line with absolute unyielding ferocity is a hero to the gang.
Okay, so the gang requires strength and courage, the muscle and the spirit, but brawn and blind aggression aren't enough to sustain a tribe, right?
No, if a tribe is solely composed of hyper-aggressive brawlers, they are going to freeze to death or starve when winter comes.
Right. Blind aggression is not a sustainable survival strategy. You need human intellect applied to the natural world. A man must be highly skilled and trusted by the men next to him.
Which bridges us to tactical virtue 3, mastery. We aren't animals that survive purely on instinct and fur. Humans survive through invention.
Okay, so define mastery for us in this context.
Mastery is the desire and ability to cultivate proficiency in the techniques that aid in survival. It is the ability to read the tracks of a deer in the mud. It is understanding the structural engineering required to build a weatherproof shelter.
Or like inventing a snare or figuring out how to cure meat with smoke so the gang doesn't starve in February.
Exactly. And this is how the utility test balances out for the men who aren't physical giants. The text explicitly notes that a physically weaker man can entirely compensate and secure his place by the fire if he is a master of a specific vital skill.
He has to carry his own weight.
Right. He might be the runt of the litter, but if he is the only one who knows how to nap flint into razor-sharp spearheads or tame fire, he is indispensable. He is carrying his weight through his intellect.
The gang respects him because his mastery directly contributes to their survival. Before they care about his personality, they care that his arrowheads fly straight.
Exactly. And that deep, primal desire to be recognized as valuable by the other men in your group, to know that you are a vital asset, leads us to the final and arguably most complex tactical virtue.
Tactical virtue 4, honor. Now, I want to point out that honor is a word that has been completely sterilized today. Like, honor today just means getting good grades on the honor roll or being a polite, upstanding citizen.
Oh, absolutely. Donovan strips it back to its raw tribal root. In the context of the gang, honor is strictly a man's reputation for strength, courage, and mastery within a group of other men.
It's hierarchical.
Highly hierarchical. It is not an internal feeling of goodness. It is entirely external. It's about status. Do the men you trust with your life respect you?
To explain how this functions, the text breaks down the concept of reflexive honor, which is just fascinating.
Reflexive honor is the primitive, visceral desire to hit back when hit. It is the instinct to never let a slight go unanswered. It operates on the logic of a rattlesnake's warning. Nemo me impune licessit. No one attacks me with impunity.
But why is that tactically necessary? Like, why not just turn the other cheek and avoid the fight?
Because in a lawless survival scenario, projecting a reputation for fierce retaliation is your only deterrence.
Ah.
If rival gangs believe you are passive and that you will forgive an insult or an incursion, they will raid your camp and take your resources. But if they know your gang operates on reflexive honor, that you will fight to the death to avenge a wrong, they are far more likely to calculate that attacking you just isn't worth the cost. Honor is a shield.
And this specific mechanism of deterrence explains one of the most provocative and controversial arguments in the entire book. It explains why primitive games react so harshly to what the author calls flamboyant dishonor.
This is a crucial point in the text's evolutionary logic. Donovan argues that in a primitive, survival-oriented gang, a man who flaunts weakness, who acts theatrically effeminate, submissive, or fearful, isn't just expressing his individuality.
Right.
In the context of the EEA, he is an active, tactical threat to the survival of the group.
Because he's advertising vulnerability.
Exactly. If a member of your squad is outwardly projecting to the world that he does not value strength or courage, he is basically putting a neon sign over the camp that says to rival tribes, "We have weak links here. Our perimeter is soft."
Wow. So when historical male gangs shun or push out that behavior, the text argues it isn't born out of an arbitrary cultural prejudice.
No.
It is an evolutionary defense mechanism. The gang has to project total unity and hardened deterrence to the outside world.
Yes.
So what does this all mean? It means caring what your brothers think of you isn't vanity. It's a pledge of loyalty. It shows you are us and not them.
Dishonor in this primal framework is synonymous with disloyalty. If you don't care about your reputation for the tactical virtues, you are showing the gang that you cannot be trusted to snap to action when the violence starts. You fail the utility test.
So if we step back and look at this portrait Donovan has painted, we see an intense, visceral biological hardwiring. For hundreds of thousands of years, male neurochemistry was calibrated for this exact environment. Strength, courage, mastery, and honor, all forged in the crucible of the party gang, holding the perimeter against the dark.
Right.
But here is where the massive collision happens. If these four tactical virtues are the biological reality of men, what happens to this millions of years old hardwiring when civilization comes along, builds grocery stores, invents air conditioning, and makes the perimeter perfectly safe?
This is where the text shifts from being a manual on tribal tactics to a searing critique of modern evolutionary psychology. And Donovan brings in a fascinating comparison between two primate cousins, chimpanzees and bonobos, to illustrate this crisis of civilization.
I found this comparison to be the ultimate aha moment of the book. Let's look at the environments these two apes live in.
As we discussed, chimpanzees live in a harsh environment of scarcity. They must actively hunt for meat. They compete for resources. Their society is patriarchal, organized around male-bonded gangs that aggressively patrol territorial borders and use violence to ensure their survival.
So it's driven by male interests. The chimpanzee environment demands the tactical virtues. It is, in essence, the way of men.
Exactly. But then you look at the bonobo, which shares just as much DNA with us as the chimp.
Okay, tell us about the bonobos.
Bonobos live in a completely different ecological niche south of the Congo River. Their environment provides abundant, easy-to-find food, mostly ground herbs and fruit.
So they don't have to hunt.
They do not have to hunt for meat. They do not face intense competition for survival. Because the perimeter is naturally safe, their social structure evolved entirely differently. It is matriarchal and peaceful.
And when tension does arise in a bonobo group, they don't resolve it through violence or game warfare, do they?
No, they resolve it through constant promiscuous sexual contact and social grooming. It is a society driven entirely by female reproductive interest because the male survival utility just isn't needed.
Wow. civilization. He argues that the Industrial Revolution and the modern state have essentially built an artificial bonobo environment for humans.
We lived in an unprecedented era of peace and plenty. You don't have to hunt. You don't have to fight off rival tribes for water.
Right. The state, through the police and the military, protects the perimeter for us. We just go to the grocery store. Donovan provocatively labels our current civilization a bonobo masturbation society.
It's an aggressive phrase, for sure, but it captures his thesis perfectly. The core problem is that while our environment has changed into a safe, bonobo-like utopia, male biology has not evolved.
Men are still neurochemically hardwired for the chimpanzee party gang struggle.
Exactly. They are built to hunt, to fight, to protect a perimeter, and to seek status through courage and strength. But modern society tells them those instincts are toxic.
So what does a man do with all that primal software when there's no war to fight and no mammoth to hunt? The text argues that he sublimates it. He channels that restless primal brain into simulated vicarious forms of gang activity.
Which explains so much of modern male culture. Men paint their faces and obsess over football on Sundays because it perfectly simulates the territorial clash of two gangs using physical strength and strategy.
Oh man, that makes so much sense.
They play highly competitive, violent video games like Call of Duty to simulate the adrenaline of a fire team guarding a perimeter.
They engage in cutthroat office politics because it simulates intragroup status competition. They watch movies like Fight Club or The Godfather over and over again because those narratives speak to the primal, uncompromising loyalty and masculinity that they are completely starved of in real life.
They're essentially playing dress-up. Donovan argues that deep down, modern men know they are living in a dying artificial culture.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the author argues that the globalist nanny state requires men to abandon their fundamental nature. To maintain the predictable order required for a massive economy to function, the state needs men to become passive, well-behaved clerks.
Because it views the natural gang-forming, aggressive instinct of men as a direct threat to civil order.
Exactly. It's the equivalent of taking a wild wolf, putting it in a climate-controlled luxury apartment, and feeding it the highest quality kibble every day.
Yes.
Yes, the wolf is perfectly safe.
Yes, it will live longer.
But it paces the floors.
Yeah.
Goes slowly insane. Because it isn't doing the thing it was genetically engineered to do. It isn't hunting with its pack.
And the intellectual class tries to offer men substitutes. They try to redefine masculinity for the modern era, telling men to find their honor in being emotionally intelligent or in being a good corporate citizen.
But Donovan argues that for the vast majority of men, this feels like a rigged game. It is intellectualized masculinity. It does not satisfy the primal itch of the utility test.
Because giving a PowerPoint presentation is not the same neurochemical experience as risking your life for the men standing next to you.
Not even close.
And when you strip men of their natural role, when you tell them that their core instincts are defective, there is a massive societal cost.
The text warns that men simply check out. They become listless. They numb their restless biology with drugs, alcohol, or endless digital distractions.
Or worse, the sublimation fails entirely.
Right. And they become the angry, violent, directionless young men who end up filling the prison systems. They become what Charles Darwin described as a great check to civilization. They are the ghosts of the EEA haunting the modern world.
Which brings us full circle to the end of our deep dive. We've journeyed from the terrifying, violent edges of the primal firelight all the way to the fluorescent-lit cubicles of the modern bonobo masturbation society.
Quite a journey.
We've recapped the stripped-down reality. Beneath the thin veneer of civilization, the true baseline of male value relies on 4 uncompromising pillars: strength, courage, mastery, and honor, forged in the crucible of the party gang holding the perimeter against the dark.
It is a stark, unapologetic view of human nature. It strips away our modern egos and forces us to ask deeply uncomfortable questions about who we actually are when the lights go out and the rules disappear.
And as we promised you, the listener, we aren't going to let you off the hook easily. We've extracted 3 aggressive journaling prompts directly from the brutal logic of this text. This is the ego strip down.
I love this part.
I want you to imagine that grid down scenario again. Strip away your title, your bank account, your polite manners, and challenge yourself to answer these honestly.
Prompt number 1. If the power grid went down today and law enforcement vanished entirely, what specific vital skill do you possess that would make a gang of dangerous men want to keep you alive and share their limited food with you? What is your mastery?
Prompt number 2. When was the last time you willingly subjected your physical body to genuine risk, pain, or grueling exhaustion? Or are you entirely relying on the state and a comfortable society to keep you safe from other men?
Where's your courage?
And prompt number 3. Do the men around you respect you because you are a formidable, capable asset in a crisis? Or do they merely tolerate you because you are nice, compliant, and harmless?
Where's your honor?
Those are heavy. They force you to look in the mirror without the Instagram filters of civilized life. It's the ultimate reality check.
They absolutely are.
Mm.
And I want to leave you with one final provocative thought drawn from the text. Donovan points out that history is not a straight line of unending progress. It is cyclical.
Right.
States rise, they grow comfortable, they become corrupt, and eventually they inevitably collapse. When the peace of plenty ends, a period he calls the interphase begins. It is a time of chaos, tribalism, and violence.
But the text implies that for men, this collapse is not necessarily a tragedy, is it?
No, it is a return to form, the environment they were biologically built for.
Wow.
So the provocative question for you to ponder is this. If the engineered systems of your life, the switches, the faucets, the police, the grocery stores, were stripped away tomorrow, leaving you standing in the dark, would you be a victim of the chaos? Or would you be one of the men who gathered together in the firelight to restart the world?